Coming up on KCCI 8 News Close Up, voters just made history in the state's largest school district.
It's tremendous. It's exciting. It's like a fresh start for our city.
A $265 million bond, the largest in Iowa history, approved by Des Moines voters. This morning, what the money will fund, how long it will take, and how district leaders plan to keep their promises to taxpayers.
We're going to see, one, better school buildings, better school facilities, but more importantly, better educational programming.
And in the city's other big races, Des Moines elects its first Latino city council member. We talk with the winners about their priorities and plans to tackle budget challenges head on.
We need to think generatively about what we can do and not just what we cannot do.
Plus, remembering former Vice President Dick Cheney, the influence he had on Iowa politics, and how those who worked with him are reflecting on his legacy.
This is Iowa's news leader. This is KCCI 8 News Close Up.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us for KCCI 8 News Close Up. I'm Chief Political Reporter Amanda Rooker. Well, Des Moines voters made some big decisions in last week's election, and those decisions will shape our city's future. They passed the school district's multi-million-dollar Reimagining Education bond and also chose new faces for both the city council and the school board. I sat down with one of those newly elected board members, Ryan Howell, along with the district's spokesperson, Phil Rader, to break down what happens next. Des Moines has made history passing one of the largest, bond plans in Iowa history. Ryan, we'll start with you. How are you feeling about that?
Outstanding. I mean, it's a tremendous vote of confidence, I think, from the city of Des Moines betting on itself.
If we're sitting at this table 5 years from now, what would you be telling me about what the district looks like?
Beyond the facilities, which are very important to provide our kids and our teachers with great places to learn and work, it's going to be the educational opportunities and options that people in Des Moines will have. The signature schools, some of which will focus on Montessori, some on STEM, some on career and technical education, some on the arts, some on languages. So I think 5 years from now we're going to see, one, better school buildings, better school facilities, but more importantly, better educational programming that our students and families can take advantage from and benefit from.
But it's also an opportunity to reset perceptions of Des Moines Public Schools, because I wish we could bring everybody in and see all the good work, all the amazing dedicated staff that are in our schools, that from the outside, often the perception is not as positive. There are great stories to tell, and I hope this investment will give us the platform to invite folks in, like yourselves, to come see what's going on in our public schools, because there's a great story to tell already, and this is going to give us an opportunity to really build on that.
Can you walk me through tangibly what it will be that will lead to increased enrollment and better student outcomes?
One thing with the increased enrollment is just simply having better facilities, showing potential families and students that we have a first-rate school, first place to go each day to learn. And secondly, better programs, more options. Middle schools oftentimes serve as a sort of bridge for 2 or 3 years in between elementary and high school. We're putting a big focus on changing that and making middle schools much more important, much more vibrant, and to have those improvements is going to make the district more attractive. So the combination of improved facilities and improved programming just makes this what we hope will be a destination district.
What in this bond referendum will help parents feel confident that this is a safe district for their kids, safe district for staff as well?
It's going to give us the resources to build spaces that are more appropriate, right, and to give more space where needed in some of our schools that are tight, and to build spaces that are intentional for now, and that includes safety aspects of it.
The school district invests literally millions of dollars each year related to public safety and security of our schools, and there's other funding that gets directed towards that. We've increased the size of our public safety staff. We've actually hired several former police officers to our own school district staff to oversee that work too. So it's always one of our priorities, and combined with the fact that it's just going to be a better climate, a better environment for students and staff alike in 5 years. And that, I think, is going to contribute a lot to some things that might be challenges in worse environments.
You'll be tasked on the school board with making sure that all of those promises are kept. How does the district keep all of those promises when there are so many pieces to it?
Well, I tell you, that was a hot topic of discussion when knocking doors in the community. I do think the public oversight committee that was set up, having conversations with residents, they really liked that idea. They liked having somebody that was going to help us make sure that we're transparent, make sure that we're doing all the things that we've communicated to the community.
Phil, talk to me about how that oversight committee will work now that this is passed, their job starts. I know it's a 5-year bond. Are the people serving on that committee, do they plan to serve 5 years? And then will the meetings be public? What are the details?
We're still working on details of that committee, how often they're going to meet, when we need to get them first together to begin that work, do a planning committee, planning meeting here sometime in the near future to answer those very questions and figure out their own process as they're along for this for the next 5 years as well.
Ryan, how do you envision this bond plan changing the city of Des Moines and the local economy as well?
It's an investment in our neighborhoods. Our schools are all through the community, and the success and the health of that school dictates the property values around that school, dictates the desirability of people wanting to live there, want to open their businesses. So this is a major win for our community and the economic development just generally. People want to be near and move their family by a school that is perceived as being successful and has, state-of-the-art facilities. So I think it's going to be a great ripple effect throughout our city.
When housing improves, you're going to see shops and restaurants, other businesses that will evolve as well. So there's going to be a multiplying effect to the hundreds of millions of dollars that the school district is investing in other aspects of the community that, it's going to be a benefit. I don't think anybody can realistically put a price tag on it right now other than it is going to be hugely significant beyond just what we're seeing happen at our school buildings.
There's a lot of pieces that are happening right now in the district that provide an opportunity for, a fresh look, a turning point. Following the arrest of Ian Roberts, we have an interim superintendent that will be there for a good while, but you're going to be tasked with also the transition of, looking for a new permanent superintendent. What's your perspective on how you'll hold leadership accountable and help the district maybe do things differently?
Yeah, I think it is. It's a great opportunity with some natural turnover, some new, fresh perspectives. The silver lining in everything that's gone on is I think a lot of people are engaged. They are engaged and they care. You know that this community cares about what happens with our public schools, and they care about the future of it. And so it's a great opening for us to be transparent and to show them what we're doing, to show them what that process looks like when we get there to hiring a new superintendent, to show what we're doing with the reimagining plans, because people care.
Well, at the time of the former superintendent's arrest, there's certainly a lot of concern, a lot of even turmoil for a bit. I think in the community, maybe what we've seen is a bit of a positive backlash in that people recognize that the superintendent is one person. They're not the entire district. And so while people might be concerned or even angry over that incident, they also still love their kids' school. They love their kids' teacher. They love their kids' principal. They know what schools and public education mean for their neighborhood and their community. And so I'm just really proud and humbled that folks in Des Moines stepped up and gave us, had our back.
Ryan, Phil, thank you both for making time. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Now, including Des Moines, all 5 Metro school bond plans passed last week. That is more than $600 million for new education projects. But if we look across Iowa, there were dozens of school bond plans that failed. I spoke with Sarah Curry with Iowans for Tax Relief about what she believes those results tell us about voters' views on their property taxes and on their local government.
I want to talk to you about these school bond referendums, specifically the ones in the metro, Des Moines area. There were 5 on the ballot. All 5 of them passed. Some of them, not all of them, raised property taxes. 3 of them would, to varying degrees. What do you take away from those results?
So I actually look a little bit broader than that. I know you talk about like the immediate Des Moines metro area, but I think we need to remember that Knoxville, Panorama, I-35, all of those measures failed. Sure. So it's not a complete sweep either way. Dallas County had their courthouse bond back on the ballot, so it came back-to-back years. That one failed again. Yes, I think some voters in the Des Moines urban area passed it, but we need to remember the broader picture. And when we look statewide, there were actually 25 bonds that passed and 33 failed.
As you're thinking about going into this next legislative session, and there's all this talk about changing property taxes, is there anything you can take away for why some voters, voted for these bonds and others didn't?
Yeah, property taxes are an issue, and I think voters are being more picky about what they support. So we saw some communities support their bond initiatives, but there had to be a lot of messaging, a lot of community engagement, a lot of explanation to kind of convince voters that it was worth their investment for that spend. And then in other communities, the property tax burden is just really, really high, and it didn't matter how much explaining needed to be done. They just weren't willing to put in that extra money and investment for that. So I really just think it comes down to the local government that wants the bond. And now the onus is on them to convince the taxpayer that this is a valuable project and the community needs this and we need your investment.
For the ones that passed, what's your advice to taxpayers on what they should be watching for, paying attention to? They're making an investment. Right. How do they make sure that what they're promised actually happens?
Yeah, so you want to make sure that your local government is actually doing what you authorize them to do. And sometimes the bond language can be a little vague. Build, construct, or remodel, that's sort of vague. You need to go to your local hearings for schools in particular. Go to your school board meetings, ask questions, follow up on it. When the building is going on, there's going to be reports given to your school board members. If you're at that meeting and you're engaged with your school board members, you can follow up on those and see how the project's going. And so really the engagement can't stop on election night. It needs to continue on, going to those board meetings. Luckily, a lot of our local governments have started live streaming and putting their meetings online, but if that's not happening, taxpayers need to encourage their school board members to do that so that way they can keep tabs on it, because it's a very important issue that taxpayers are getting what they signed up for.
I know you mentioned not all bond referendums, passed if you look outside the metro, but I'm thinking about communities like Des Moines, West Des Moines, Ankeny, all had, semi-substantial, bonds on the ballot. When I've gone out and talked to voters, in those areas separately from these bonds, they've talked to me. I'm thinking specifically some conversations I had with voters in Ankeny saying property taxes are too high. And then in this, election, they voted to be okay with some property tax increases. I know that that's maybe not representative of the whole state, but what do you take away from that kind of dichotomy?
I think we need to understand too that this was an off election year. Sure. So when we look statewide, we had less than 20% voter turnout. We don't have the turnout numbers yet for each of the individual contests, but we were not getting 50-60% voter turnout. We're getting closer to 15, 20, 25% voter turnout. And so you're right, that's not a good representation of the entire community. And so it's really kind of a shame that you could have 15% of your voters sign an entire community up for 20 years of increased property taxes. And so that's why the direct notification for these bonds is so important, and getting people out to vote is so important. When we look at the state as a whole, people I think are upset about property taxes, but not all of those people are engaging in off-year elections. Overall, we had a lot of bonds this election, and normally the passage rate is about 50%, and that did not happen this time. 25 passed and 33 failed. A majority of those were school bonds that failed. And so I think overall we are seeing a trend away from approving these bonds, and people are starting to ask more questions. And I do think the property tax issue is becoming a bigger issue, and it's more at the front of the voter's mind than maybe in years past.
Well, still to come on Close Up, how Dallas County leaders are moving forward after their plan for a new courthouse failed for a second time. Plus, Polk County voters elect Des Moines' first ever Latino city council member and re-elect an at-large member to serve his first full term. Each share their vision for making Iowa's largest city a better place to live. Welcome back to Close Up. We're wrapping up last week's local election results this morning, and that includes some new leadership on the Des Moines City Council. Voters chose Mike Simonson to remain in his at-large position. They also elected Rob Barron to lead Ward 1. I talked to both of those members about what comes next for Iowa's largest city.
Des Moines voters made history last Tuesday night and set the direction for the city's future. Mike Simonson will stay on city council, this time for a full 4-year term in the at-large seat he first filled last year after Connie Boesen became mayor. Simonson says the voters' priorities haven't changed.
A year and a half ago, as you'll recall, the 4 issues were homelessness, housing affordability, DART, and public schools. This time, a year and a half later, those same 4 issues, but public schools was at the top of the list.
In Ward 1, which covers the northwest side, voters elected Des Moines' first Latino city council member, Rob Barron.
We should feel as though we have a city and a city government that is inclusive and aspirational.
Barron says he's ready to bring a fresh perspective and tackle the city's toughest challenges.
We need to build and approve more affordable housing. We need to address homelessness. We need to advocate with our legislature for quality water. And I want to push a conversation about affordable, accessible childcare.
He also says city spending deserves a closer look.
Our city also spends almost $1 billion a year of taxpayer money. Maybe we'll make some decisions that some of the things we were spending money on were not needed or not needed as much.
Simonson agrees, saying it's time to reset priorities.
A few things that we're looking at, revising, for example, the tax abatement schedule and just resetting some priorities, both in terms of income and expenses.
Both say they're ready to get to work and get to know the people they serve.
I'm a problem solver by nature, architecture being my background, so I'm here to help solve the issues.
I'm just so excited to serve my community and I'm so grateful for the opportunity that the voters gave me.
A bond referendum for a new Dallas County courthouse is once again rejected. When we come back, why one resident tells us she voted against it. Welcome back. For the second time in a row, voters in Dallas County rejected a $60 million bond referendum for a new courthouse. This time, nearly 57% marked no on their ballot. KCCI's Marcus McIntosh has reaction from voters.
Hope that the bond referendum would get the needed 60% of Dallas County votes cast to pass quickly faded once polls closed Tuesday night. The $60 million, 78,000 square foot criminal courthouse would have been built near the Dallas County Law Enforcement Center. It would have housed the Dallas County Attorney's Office, Juvenile Court Services, and parole and probation staff. The current courthouse was built more than 120 years ago. It holds 6 courtrooms, one of which is under construction. Only 3 courtrooms are big enough to seat a full-size jury. County residents apparently were not sold on this plan.
I guess you're going to have to try to convince me that it's really needed. I used to work in the courthouse. I know they're redoing it, but truly, do they fill up the court spots every day? I don't think so.
We spoke with Dallas County Supervisor Kim Chapman, who tells KCCI he is disappointed in the result of the vote, saying Dallas County is growing fast and the need exists. As for what is next, he does not know.
Why that came up is that
this is a group of ladies who have been meeting twice a week for some 50 years.
That she has 50 kids.
An opinionated group that all voted the same on the bond referendum to fund a new courthouse.
I voted no, and I was was pleased with the outcome.
Marcus McIntosh, KCCI 8 News, Iowa's news leader.
So now that this has failed twice, what comes next for the Dallas County Courthouse? We know that the Board of Supervisors will discuss the results of this vote at an upcoming meeting and think about more details. Well, next on Close Up, remembering Dick Cheney, how his former Iowa campaign chair is reminiscing on the moments that he shared with the late former vice president. Former Vice President Dick Cheney died last week at the age of 84. Cheney served under former President George W. Bush from 2001 to 2009. KCCI's Eric Hansen talked with the former Iowa chair to the Bush-Cheney campaign to take a look at the legacy that the former VP leaves behind.
So you got to know Dick Cheney behind the scenes. We all saw him on TV, on the TV. Describe what he was like. What's Dick Cheney like?
His personality on TV was about the same as his personality when you were just visiting with him. He had a good sense of humor, but very serious individual. I mean, you could always tell he was thinking about something.
He kind of went from not very well known to all of a sudden on that ticket in 2000, and then in 2004. And he became a really strong vice president.
He did, no question. I mean, I think the circumstances dictated with the 9/11 attack The other thing is that he was well known in Washington. I mean, while maybe not nationally so much, but I mean, you look at the jobs he had. He was at age 32. He was chief of staff to Gerald Ford when he was president. He was Secretary of Defense at one time, and so he had a well-rounded background for that position.
And as you said, in '04, he honestly spent a lot of time here.
He did spend a lot of time here, and I never asked him if he was tired of coming back because I was afraid what the answer would be.
That being said, especially in that '04, I queued up a lot of those town halls where it was a give and take with people in the audience, which honestly we don't have right now nearly as much. It's so rehearsed. Did that tell you anything about his personality and his ability to think on his feet?
It did, and the seriousness that he took questions, and I mean he's probably one of the last Cold War warrior types that we had in our country, and during that period of time, I mean, he was very much into U.S. involvement in international events.
At the same time, he wasn't afraid to let his opinion be known, and as a result, kind of on both sides, he ruffled some feathers.
I mean, he felt strongly about his positions, but I think that one of the greatest comments about his success came from President Bush this morning when he said he was the vice president that I needed.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning. Have a great day.